Good evening, everyone. I only advertised group, I think about lunchtime today. So sorry for the late notice. We say it every week. And I didn't put a topic. So we are open to suggestions tonight. If there's something people would love to hear more about, or there's something that's come up for them, throw it out there. We always pluck things out if people don't have something.
Or pick on people.
But it is nice. Like last week we had a really good topic, which just started the conversation, and then it was a lovely group.
What was that?
Well, it was around the now and thinking that we know something and how that keeps us stuck. And it's interesting, we've just been speaking to someone and you can see it's all of the beliefs that are creating the discomfort, the dissatisfaction, and how easy it is to think we just need someone else or something else to change for us to be all right. And we kind of spoke around that for most of the group, and different people, and Kate came on and did a bit of a talk for us.
Thanks, Kate.
So we can talk more around that because it was a great group, but it'd be nice, because it's quite a small one, if it was a bit more interactive. So if people do have questions or comments or would love to hear more about a certain subject, just shout.
Is there anything anybody wants to talk about? Any subject, how does this fit into this? How does it fit into that? If not, we will drag something out of the ether. But this is we just want this to be an interactive thing.
Can I just ask?
Look at that, both at the same time. What's the chances? Ange.
Oh no, go to me the first time because I'm trying to think how to say it.
Anna.
I was just gonna share that I understand what being present is on an intellectual level, and have worked at being present. You know, I love being out in nature, really feel connected. But in the last month, I've only really understood what being present is, if that makes sense. So I felt like it was something that I had to have all different conditions to achieve. So I had to be out in nature, walking my dog, to be really feeling that connection and that presence. And I had a session with somebody who challenged my thinking, because I was saying something like, well, I've got this part of my life here, and when I'm over here doing my work with clients or being out in nature and just enjoying myself, then I feel totally different, and I want more of this in this other part of my life. And I was seeing it as I didn't realize this until I was sort of called out on it, so to speak. I was seeing it as I needed all these conditions to be present, if that makes sense. And so I just wanted to share it really, that I've suddenly realized that I can be hanging out the washing and being totally present. I can be washing up, or mundane jobs. I haven't got to be just in this euphoric state looking at a beautiful sunset or being out in nature. And it's been a massive shift. And it's always interesting. I always find with this understanding that you think you know something, and then it's like another layer, it's like another unpeeling, isn't it? It's like, oh, now I've got it. And I'm sure there'll be another unpeeling and another unlayering at some point. But yeah, you think you understand it, and then you realize you were looking at it maybe on an intellectual level, which I didn't realize I was. I thought I was connected. I don't know if I've explained that well enough, but yeah.
I get a feel for it.
So
Yeah,
is it-
it's nice to realize it is just about being present with whatever it is. And I think sometimes we think that being present does come with a certain type of feeling. That'd be like another thing that we get an idea about, is being present is when you're peaceful or happy. And I think it's almost when the seeing of like it being present with grief, or being present with shame, or like present in the moment with what is, rather than trying to think about being somewhere else. And I think it's that same thing of, to think we need to be in a beautiful place to experience presence, to suddenly realize, God, I can do it when I'm washing up, or I can do it when I'm hanging out the washing. It's like, it is that it doesn't ever come from outside. It's always with us. It's always a potential. But I think it's that whole idea that presence somehow has a certain quality of, or a certain feeling attached to it. Whereas presence is really just being with what is, seeing what is, rather than what isn't. And I think that, so it took me years really probably to see that, because I always thought being present was about a good feeling. And when I realized actually being fully present with grief is something quite beautiful too, that kind of thing. But I definitely agree with you that it's, you think you know something and then you get to see it again and again and again. And I think that's probably going to be all of us forever.
It's like,
Because it'll always be a concept. As soon as it's, you know, the insight is wordless, and then we kind of try and formulate what we think has happened. But I think that's why it's a never-ending thing, because there's no depth to the insight of the truth of something.
it's like an unpeeling of an onion.
Yeah.
It's like you take a layer of onion off, and eventually you keep on peeling an onion, there's nothing there. There's nothing in the middle of it. It's like continuous, it's infinity. And I think when I think about presence, all there is really is presence. We think presence is a state of being. Presence is our true state of being. I am presence. You know, and then so there is always a presence. You know, people talk about there is a presence. Yes, there is a presence in the room. Yes, you were it in this instance. I am the presence. But what we tend to get so blinded by is what this presence or consciousness, another word for presence you could say, is just pure aware consciousness. But what pure aware consciousness does is it thinks. It remembers, it imagines, it does all kinds of amazing things. And so we mistaken our own very own continuous present state for thoughts. And we mistaken it for feelings, and we mistaken it. And this is a misidentification of the self, because the true self, you often hear people talking about the true self or the God self or source or whatever anybody wants to call it. Sid called it pure mind, pure consciousness, pure thought, doesn't matter. The true self is always present. Always present. You are always present with what is, like Jenny was saying. Presence with grief, presence with happiness, presence with discontent, presence with, oh, fucking, I can't be asked to do this tonight. It's like there is always the presence there to witness it. So what people kind of attribute as presence and the feeling of presence is what I would say, in my opinion, in my observations, would be when we suddenly find ourselves in the moment without a judgment. Because when we're in the moment without the judgment, we are literally seeing life for what it is. another word you could just use to describe that would be acceptance. What is acceptance? It's seeing life as it is without a judgment. So the two are really one. And it's like, all it is, and you can't think your way to it. You know, oh, I'm going to practice having no thoughts right now. Okay, don't have any thoughts, no thoughts, no thoughts, no thoughts, no thoughts, no thoughts. Quiet mind, quiet mind, quiet mind. Okay, quiet mind. Okay, quiet mind. You can't do it because your mind's preoccupied with trying to quieten itself down, which is itself is a creation. So the mind is creating the thoughts of I need to quieten the mind down, but the very act of the creation is the very thing that that person is trying to avoid. Yeah. So it is just something that in my observations, it's something that one comes more naturally to people the more they experience it.
Just going to have to dip out. I'm really sorry just for a second. I just had an emergency with one of my kids, so I'll just turn my video off if that's okay. I'm really sorry to have interrupted you. Yeah. So I just got
that is what happened.
Sorry.
But the first and foremost, what was I talking about? Yeah, it's not something you can think your way to. You can't think your way to presence. It's something that just happens, and it does become easier the more we experience it. Because the more we experience it, the more we start to see what gets in the way of us experiencing it. It's like the more we experience it, the more we start to see for ourselves what it is that takes us away from just being in the moment. You can never be outside of the moment. It's impossible. But the mind can travel through time. It can conjure up time. It can conjure up scenarios. And that's what we attribute to being not present. So what is not present? It's when our consciousness and our thoughts are misaligned. The consciousness is always now. The consciousness doesn't know anything but now, because it is now. That's all there is. But thought has the capacity to create a future and a past, to create problems, to create judgments. And so when our consciousness and our thoughts are not in alignment, it's like, not that they can be misaligned, it's just metaphorically speaking. They will, cool. It's like, that's the thing that we say is taking us out of presence, when our thoughts are off on a track of future or past, problem or judgment. So it's like when that goes quiet, I believe that's what Anna's talking about. It's like when that goes quiet, we find ourselves in the moment. And when we're in the moment, there is no problems. Such an interesting thing. You know, we think we've got all these problems going on, and all these hardships in the world. But if you take a moment and just find yourself where you are, a million times over one, you find you're absolutely fine. The only thing that was creating the discomfort was our very own minds, taking us out of the moment, imagining scenarios of the future or remembering harrowing things from the past. It's a beautiful thing to become aware of, because many people are not aware of this. They're not aware of the role of the mind in reality, in the creation of reality. They're not aware that the mind is the sole creator of the reality that we experience as our life. We've all been led to believe, or we've all idly adopted the idea that what determines our life is external forces. And Sid Banks came along in our time and said, no, it doesn't. No, what determines your quality of life is your quality of mind. If you live in hell, it's a state of mind. If you live in heaven, it's a state of mind. And to find ourselves present is just to see the world, see everything, see our thoughts objectively without judgment. It doesn't even mean you don't have to think. Doesn't even mean we're not thinking. It's when we're not attaching to the thoughts. It's when the thoughts are allowed to just come and go. Be seen for what they are, ripples in the consciousness that we are. And Dan has logged off. How you done? So
I was going to say, Ange, do you know how to sort of articulate what you wanted to say now?
It's not really, it's talking about manifesting things in the universe. Does this in any way connect to the three principles at all?
say that again.
You know, you talk about manifesting things from the universe. I've listened to a couple of things with Wayne Dwyer and Louise Hay, and they talk about manifesting things that you want from the universe. And I don't think that's in any way connected to the 3 Ps at all. And I was just wondering if you knew anything about it.
It's all the same thing, love.
When
It's
it said universe, I thought that may be like mind, it's us.
Yeah. You know, everything that exists within the universe is the universe. I mean, what we call the universe is what we tend to think of, what we see, what we can touch. So we'll go, well, what's the universe? It's stars, it's planets, it's galaxies, it's suns, it's black holes, it's asteroids, it's massive. Something created it. Something created the whole shebang. And physicists would call it energy. Spiritual people may call it God, talking about the same thing. And there's a bit of a clue in the word universe, uni meaning singular, one. So we have this one force creating all things. And that's what people fall into the space of from time to time. They get to experience it from time to time. They get to experience what people call oneness. What is oneness? Well, oneness is the awareness of the universe. You see, how I see it is that the universe is infinite information and infinite potential. It is a conscious state. The conscious state that we think animates our physical bodies, we tend to identify as ourselves, is the universe. So really, when we think of ourselves as separate beings, that's the illusion. We're not separate. Every single one of us is the universe experiencing life through a physical body and a mind. Thoughts. Okay. There is nothing but the universe in this universe. What makes the sun makes the moon, what makes the moon makes the sea, what makes the sea makes the people, what makes the people makes the trees, what makes the trees makes the fish. Infinity. What gives birth to life is the same thing as death. That's why when Jesus was asked, tell us how our end will be, he said, I take it from your question that you found the beginning, that you asked me about the end. Blessed is he who takes his place in the beginning, for he'll know the end and not taste death, is what he said. There's no beginning, there's no end, there's just the universe, what people call the universe. The energy, the spirit, the soul of all souls, the consciousness of all things. This is the oneness of life. The separation only takes place in thoughts of separation, belief in separation, belief in difference. The moment we identify with a body and we go, I am as far as I can feel. I'm this big. No, it's a physical body. Your body's attached to the earth. In fact, your body came from the earth. Look at what the body's made of, and you realize it's made of everything I can dig out of the field outside. It's got iron, carbon, calcium, water, phosphorus, all just elements and chemicals of the earth. Amazingly put together in such a way, but it's also enlivened by a force of intelligence, the same intelligence that created the body in which it inhabits. In Buddhism, they say, when you do harm to another, you do harm to yourself. They're talking about the same thing. That's why many Buddhists don't harm insects or hurt anything. They choose to be kind and show love to all things because they realize they're doing it to themselves. Because they are the insects. Because they are the other person. So when it comes to manifesting, we're manifesting all the time. If Mark was on here now,
I was just thinking about Mark.
Yeah, he would say, you are manifesting all the time, but most people don't know it. And you do it with thought. We do it with thought.
I think another word for manifesting is creation, reality. And Mark and I were talking about this the other day, and he was just saying how the only thing blocking our creative force or power is what we believe is possible. So the block to creating or manifesting will be belief, what we believe is possible. And so many of our beliefs are completely invisible to us. So we keep, and we were talking about a friend of mine who's always ill. And like I've related to them because I've had similar tendencies where, you know, the every ache and pain, I think it's something really bad. I say, oh, I think this person's like a master manifester. And as I was saying it, I realized, no, we all are. We all are creating our reality that we see. And it's all that we can experience. And we've had times where we've consciously asked for things and really almost believed them to be true already. And they've come into our lives, and you'd think the chances of it actually happening, it would seem impossible, but then they've happened. I think there's some of the things that we've asked for. I know I've had doubt in my mind whether it's actually possible, whether really we could do that. And I think that's where you start seeing it's thought that either blocks or creates. And the more we can open our mind to realizing we don't know anything, we have no idea the power within ourselves and within this universe or what's beyond the universe. Like all of that is the oneness. And I think when we start to realize we are the one, all of us are the one. I think that power, that realization, who knows what we can create? And actually, you only have to look around at creation. It's phenomenal. The things that have been dreamt into life and put into action. But like I was saying to Lisa the other day, and I was saying it to you first, I was getting blown away the other day just by just how life is a miracle. Like I was talking to you, how the hell does a chicken make an egg every single day in a hard shell?
How are you making a baby?
If I know I'm not, and
Yeah.
it's like that blows my mind. Like the absolute unknowable power or force. Like you only actually have to look around us to see that it's everywhere. It's in everything. And that it blows. We were going down to get some vegetables and stuff, and I was just like, how does it create an egg with a hard shell? And then you're
Every day.
Every single day. And we almost have to realize we've lived in a very mechanical material world view. And then that's created ideas and beliefs of what's possible. But when we can start to see that everything that we've taken on as true is an idea and a belief, and it's not true, because the truth is there's this unlimited source of creative power that exists, and there's evidence for it everywhere. So when we recognize that we're not separate from that, I have no idea what's possible for people in terms of manifestation. We have friends that have sort of created amazing things in their lives, and
written books about it, so,
but I think it does come back to, what do I believe is possible?
I remember when I first woke up to the what the principles are pointing to. Hey, buddy, it's all right, you're in detention. My friend Sue, who introduced me to the principal, she asked me, she said, what? Because I knew that the moment I woke up, it was like I knew what I had to do in my life. I had to help other people find this magic that we all are. And I felt like I'd found the answer to how to do that. And some people know, some people don't. Don't know. But I have spent time in prison in the past for violence when I was younger, and I met some really good people in prison. I met some really awesome people. They were like me. They'd fucked up. They'd made a mistake, and they were paying the price. And I remember saying to Sue, I want to get into work in prisons. I want to take the principles into prison. And so I inquired around and spoke with my friend Janet, she was trying to get into prisons as well. And it turned out there was nobody in the UK sharing the principles in the prisons at the time. And I sent off all these letters and I never heard a thing. And I was getting really despondent. Oh, this is impossible. And then one day I just lay back on my bed and I just asked. I said, please send me somebody so I can start working in prisons. Please just send me somebody. 10 days later, we had a bit of a storm. I went and looked at some trees. I was a tree surgeon back then. Driving back, there's a branch dropped down in the road. Cleaned that up. Got home, sorting out the kit. I never used to wash down my kit, but I was washing my kit down, vans and trailers and stuff. And this lady turns up at my drive gates. I was just watching her walk past. And I don't know, Dan's been to my house. And Mackie's been to my house. And Lisa's been to my house because she's my sister. And Kendra's been to our house. They'll know that it's not really the busiest thoroughfare for people. And I just said, how are you doing, to this lady who was quite smartly dressed. She said, I'm fine, thank you. She said, I don't know if you could help me. She said, I'm lost. I said, all right. I said, where are you trying to get to? She said, the Gateway Inn. She said, I'm supposed to get off the train in Kendal, but I've stopped on too many stops and I've got off in Staveley. I feel so stupid. I don't know why I didn't get off. I was like, no problem. I said, you're on the wrong road. If you want to go to the Gateway, you want to be on the main road, jump in my van, I'll give you a lift. Lady gets in my van and I'm giving her a lift. And I set off up the main road and this voice comes in my head and says, ask her what she does for a living. So I said, do you mind me asking you what you do for a living? And she said, no. She said, I've just taken a managerial role with a charity that works with the well-being of offenders. I said, right. I said, I think you were meant to stop on the train to meet me. I said, I knew it. I said, I knew it. Do you mind if I buy you a drink at the pub? So I bought her a drink, sat down, and she said, I want you. I told her all about everything that had happened. And she said, I want you working with me. She said, you have to go to an interview. She said, but I want you working with me. So I went for an interview and I got the job and I got to start taking the principles into prisons. I was the first person in the UK to do it. And it's like, we do not yet fully comprehend the magnitude of our minds. Any of us. Because we cannot fully understand the magnitude of who and what we are, because we are the force of the universe, which is infinite creative power. And people can say that's utter bollocks. They're welcome to, but the very fact that they can even think that the consciousness is present to experience that as a reality, that cannot be separate from the universe is testament to the fact that it's not. We're a big ass thing. We are phenomenal. Every single thing is phenomenal. It's all a magical miracle. It's all a magical miracle. It's all a magical display of consciousness, the whole thing. Our realities, our individual little realities, is a magical display of our very own consciousness. All of it, from birth till death. Not a single thing outside of it. There is no outside of it. And every single consciousness, or all consciousness, is endowed with the creative force of God. It is God. We are God. But we identify with the creation as opposed to the creator. We identify with what our mind creates as ideas for who we think we are and who other people are and what this world is and what's right and what's wrong, what's good and what's bad. We identify with that over the fact of creation itself, the creator. We identify with creation over creator. I often liken that to an ocean identifying itself as a wave, misidentifying itself as a singular little wave or a massive wave. Every single wave came from the ocean, but the ocean does, creates waves. So what Sid came along was he helped people to see what the misidentification is. The misidentification is the ego. What is the ego? The ego is beliefs. The ego is memories. The ego is what we think. It's what we believe. It's what we think is real over the true reality, which is pure, unconditional love. There's a reason why love is spoken about so much in the Bible, and it is attributed to God. God is love. Well, what is love? Love is the unifying state of all things. When you fall in love with somebody, you unify with them, you feel unified, you feel connected. All we're doing is remembering our truest essence, our truest self. Love. When you fall in love, you feel connected, whether it be a place, an animal, a picture, a piece of music, a person. You feel connected to it. You feel at one with it. You feel unified. And it's beautiful. We go in search of it. We go in search of it all the time. Food, tastes, smells. We go in search of it. Our search always takes us externally. So somebody we've been working with just earlier on today, the search for love has always taken her towards men. We're saying it's a different kind of love we're talking about. We're talking about discovering the love that we are. Very hippie concept to many people. But when it's experienced and it's seen for being true, because it really is true, that what lies behind this reality is a state of something that we call love. A unified state, a singular state, and it is so fucking beautiful. When people enter it, they don't want to leave. If they don't leave, they don't inhabit the body anymore. So sometimes in life, people get glimpses of this. They get to taste it. They get to experience what's behind reality, what's behind this world, what's behind this universe. They get to fall back into their true self. The ego gets to step aside, and the full magnitude of self is rediscovered. And it is always, you will hear people come back and they will say, it was the most beautiful love that I cannot talk about. It was the most perfect place. That is what we are. We are that perfect place, every single one of us. Misidentifying ourselves for our story, which we are absolutely free to create without any judgment from any higher perspective other than our very self. Yeah, so the manifesting is all part of the principles, yes. There is nothing that isn't the principles. And when we talk about the creation of reality, what is the external reality if it's not a creation of some mind? What is the external reality if it's not the creation of some deep intelligence? This is why I often like to talk about a thorn. And some people have heard me say this, but it's what occurred to me one day was, again, from within my own mind, why do plants have thorns? I was pulling one out of my hand at the time, to protect it, chatting away to myself. But how does it work? Well, it works because I get pricked by the thorn and I don't like it, so I don't go near it. Or an animal gets pricked by the thorn, it doesn't like it, and so it doesn't go near it again. It just leaves it the hell alone. I used to hate climbing thorn trees as a tree surgeon, or ones with roses in it, or thistles in my fingers and brambles everywhere. I had thorns everywhere as a tree surgeon. But then its next question was, but how does it work? And I thought back to my biology lessons and I thought, well, I've got a nervous system. So the thorn punctures my skin. I feel it with my nervous system, sends a message to my brain. My brain is empowered with consciousness, which becomes aware of it, which then tells me, just leave it alone and you won't get hurt. Leave the plant alone. But then the next question it asked me was, but how does a plant of the plant kingdom understand? How does the plant of the plant kingdom understand the nervous system of the animal kingdom? Given that the plant doesn't have a nervous system attached to a brain, how does it understand to create thorns that only work because of a nervous system? Without a nervous system, there is no use for a thorn. And I couldn't answer it. I don't know. How does a plant of the plant kingdom understand to create a defensive mechanism that utilizes the nervous system of the animal? I tried to figure it out and I tried to figure it out. And then a few weeks later, it just occurred to me, it doesn't. I didn't know I had a nervous system till I learned about it. But what creates the thorn creates the nervous system. What creates the plant creates the animal. There's an intelligence behind life. There's an intelligence behind nature. There's an intelligence that tells the trees now in the UK and in Sweden too, that it's winter, don't have your leaves. Drop your leaves. There's also an intelligence, the same intelligence, which will tell them start to bud, burst your leaves, daffodils, time to come up, insect, come out to correspond with the daffodils. There's an intelligence behind all life. And this intelligence is the same intelligence that we are. There's an intelligence that runs the body. If I had to remember to beat my heart or breathe my lungs or digest my food or work my endocrine system, I'd be dead in minutes.
Seconds.
But there's an intelligence. We identify ourselves with our own thoughts, our name, our jobs, our rank, our social standing. But that's not what we are. That's an illusion.
So Rusty knows it's 8 o'clock in the morning, breakfast time,
Yeah,
and then at 4 o'clock and 4:30 in the evening.
he
It's
does
nearly time for tea time. So, but it's just
every time.
it's like clockwork, and you're like, how does he know?
He can't read a clock, can he?
No, it was his Amiga watch
Is his mega watch?
or his Rolex.
Yeah. Anything's possible, Ange. Absolutely anything is possible. That's what all this is about. That's what this mind is all about. It's about working out how to use it wisely. Some people create utter mayhem in their lives. I've been one of those people. Created mayhem. I saw a very negative world and I got into a fight every weekend that I went out. Got into an argument, got into some kind of altercation every single day. People came out the woodwork to make my life difficult. Banks made my life difficult. I got so many letters that I couldn't cope with, that I didn't understand. And after I woke up, it all stopped. Just stopped. The bank stopped sending me shitty messages. I didn't get into a scrap. Didn't get into arguments anymore. People were decent and kind, and life got so much simpler. Can I rationally explain it? No, but it happened. I discovered how, and one of the things I was told after I woke up was, there is gifts within consciousness that mankind is not consciously evolved enough consciously yet to utilize. We must wake up to start to use our mind more wisely. How do we wake up? We first and foremost see that what we think is not real. What we think is not real. It's a potential within an infinite potential. The way we perceive people or the world is not a fact. It's a potential within infinite potentials. And the moment our mind changes, the reality around the circumstance or the person or the individual or the work or whatever it is changes. Reality is as solid as thought. The moment we see that, we start to take life less seriously. We start to relax. It's not a passive thing. It's anything but a passive thing. It's one of the most empowering places we can find ourselves. There's a saying, I know I am wise, for I know nothing. I think it was Socrates. Probably wrong. Somebody will probably correct me on that. When we start to see that our thoughts are not facts, our mind starts to get more open. We become more present, we become more discerning with what we're put up with how we want to live. Absolutely, and yes, people are manifesting continuously into the physical world. This whole world is a manifestation of mind. It's like when we were out in South Africa and we went to a soup kitchen and our friend was so overwhelmed. So the problem facing South Africa is too big. There's 300 homeless people in that room. She came out, she was crying. She said, the problem facing South Africa is too big. We said, what do you mean? She said, this is just scratching the surface of the problem in South Africa. And we just said to her, we said, no, problem facing South Africa isn't big. The problem facing South Africa is tiny. It looks big if you've got to find equal job opportunities, equal housing, redistribution of land and equality throughout society. And yeah, it looks really overwhelming then. But if you take it down to the very bare bones and you realize that South Africa is only like it is because of the beliefs that people carry around about one another. The moment people's minds change, South Africa will change. It has to. That's how big the problems of the world are. They are thoughts. They're not actual things. South Africa will change when people's minds change about one another. Oh, that'll take time. No, it doesn't. Minds change in a moment. Because time, the mind does not exist in time. Time exists in the mind. The mind is only ever in the now. Time is a creation of mind. Time is an illusion of outside of the now. And there is no outside of the now. So no, it doesn't take time. That's why these people like Jesus Christ and Buddha and countless other people could come along and they could perform what we call miracles. What is a miracle? It's somebody who uses the mind in a knowledgeable way. Somebody who knows what they're doing with the mind in that moment.
I just want to say to Viv, and it just comes up as Zoom user, so I don't know who it is. It's a bit of an open discussion tonight. So we said if people have questions, please, you can either type them in the chat or just jump in and ask your question because we haven't got a topic. So and Paul, I think you've just joined. That's what we said at the beginning. Just if anyone has questions or comments, please join in. I remember my dad telling me a story of it was before he'd come across the principles, but his mum was getting quite early onset dementia and what's it called?
Arthritis.
No, not arthritis.
Alzheimer's.
Alzheimer's. Close. And he said for the first few years, really, he kept trying to correct her because she would think he was her brother, and then he said at some point he just had this insight that it upsets her when he tries to correct her, and he said he realized he could just go along with what made sense to her, and he could be actually whoever she saw him as in that moment. And he said, and he got to then enjoy her company. She didn't get distressed. And sometimes, she'd be playing at school again, and she'd be at primary school, and she'd be talking to the teachers. And he just said it was so interesting because he was learning things about his mum that he'd never heard her speak about before. And all these memories from her past came up. And he said he realised how with children we can just, do make-believe and suspend our belief and join in and get lost in like these fantasy kind of games and things. And he said then when he came across the principles, he started to see, well, we're all living in a creation of mind. We're all living in a fantasy creation. And some of it we think is completely real and fixed, and some of it we kind of know we're making up. But he started to see no, it is all made up. It is all creation, which is how we all live in a completely different world. And I think at the moment we're seeing it on such a huge scale. Like the last few years we've had with like Black Lives Matter, with what's happened in America with the political parties, what's happened in the UK with Brexit, now stuff with COVID. You can see we're all living on this planet, but we're all living in completely different worlds. Some people are excited, some people are terrified. You've got completely opposing views, but every single person that I speak to believes what they think. They believe their reality. And I think I'm starting to see more and more how the innocence in all of that, and how it's so easy to get caught in judgment and think that we know that we're right and that we're seeing a truer version. But ultimately, I don't really know, because I know that I can't see anything outside of my own mind. And the only way to see anything new is to kind of put down what we think we know and be open. Otherwise, we just keep on thinking the same old thing, and then it looks more and more real because we get more and more evidence for it. And I think that people are sometimes like, well, yeah, but there is an actual reality, but we're all just viewing it differently. And I feel like I'm coming to see, no, there really is only, I don't know anything outside of my mind. I've only got characters and people and events that are filtered through my own creative power of thought. And that's what everyone else is experiencing too. And then collectively, this is where we're at. And I don't know, I feel we've spoken about it a couple of times on Community Group. I feel like I'm getting called more and more to, can I include you within my circle of who I love? And even though you think completely differently to me, even though I feel like what you're doing is totally wrong, can I extend my feeling and my goodwill and my love and my realization of sameness to them? Because it's so easy to create a them and us. It's so easy to create an idea of us having something and we're right and they're wrong. And that division is part of the dualistic mind, the false mind. And it's like it feels like there's so many opportunities for us to be able to see beyond difference. And that's, I think, when someone put that thing on Facebook about who introduced you to the 3 principles, I don't normally comment that much on Facebook, but I wanted to put Roger's name up there because he passed away so long ago. He's not often spoken about as much, but I just remember him speaking so much about what he called, as a psychologist, psychological innocence. And he said when he worked in communities and when he worked with people, and he worked across the board with people from all backgrounds, he was in the prison systems, he was in Skid Row in LA. He said he only ever spoke to that space within of innocence and health. And he spoke to that, and he said sometimes it would take a while to get rapport with people. We said, but the more he spoke to it, the more he got that back from people. The more he spoke to people's humanity, the more he'd see humanity. And I think it so often looks like we need other people of the world to be different for us to accept or love or not judge. But it is like but it starts with us. And I think that's what Roger was so beautiful at articulating and sharing, is that he just saw beyond behaviour, beyond story, beyond beliefs to people's nature. And he knew that it was one nature, one consciousness. And then that's not to say that, like, both of us often talk about the times when we get totally caught up, totally blame out there, totally feel lost. That's being alive, that's being human. Doesn't matter, it seems, however long I'm around this, I still get completely caught out by my own creations and realities.
And good, because it's fun.
Yeah, and but there isn't the same sort of judgment or this idea that we need to get somewhere. There isn't anywhere to get to. Like, we're already here. It's already now. There's nowhere else to be. And we were speaking to someone earlier, and I could see how tearful they got when you were talking about you're already all right, you're already perfect. And we can have these ideas that there's aspects of ourselves or parts of ourselves, or we've developed this way, and we get so lost in stories about what needs to be different for us to just enjoy life or to be present or to live. But it's almost, life's just living regardless of all those stories and beliefs. And the more that we can see their stories and beliefs, the more freedom we find. Like, I know there's people on this call who have found so much freedom from thoughts that have held them prisoner for a huge chunk of their lives. And it didn't happen through effort, it happened like in a moment of realization. And then at some point they can get totally freaked out by their own mind again, as we all do. But I think once you start to glimpse a different reality, a different world, a world that isn't restricted or imprisoned, you know that freedom exists. You have something to kind of weigh everything else up against. Like, is this true? Do I have to believe this? Like, the amount of times I've been like, I actually don't have to do this. I've gone down this road quite far, but actually I don't have to. Like, you laughed. Ali, your cat's bottom is beautiful.
I love the way you have to look right past its hoop.
We often say that animals don't like it when we're on technology. They often come and sit like right on top of the laptop or try and get the phone out of your hand.
I've just noticed Sarah's arrived just now. So should we have a break? Let's have 10 minutes. Sorry,
Sorry,
Sarah.
sir.
You're in detention for being late as well.
But we will be back in 10 minutes.
We're going to come back in 10 minutes. All right. Go and get a brew.
It's about 20
Go
past.
to the loo. Yeah, it's back about 20 past, something like that. No, quarter past. What time? What time? Somebody say a time.
10 minutes from now.
What, 10 minutes from now? Yeah, that'll do. Hold on. Thanks for the break, sir. Right.
Any questions?
Any questions, comments?
Lisa, you must have something to say.
Yeah, I do actually. As some of you know, my dog's hilarious and she's got a lot of vibe. And I was watching her the other night and she was lying on a bed and she busts some quite interesting like dog moves at night, like she'd be on her back or with her legs in the air and stuff. I just properly saw like her creation is the same as mine. Like I was looking at her and having a chat with my mum about this tonight, and she's dreaming away, and the little feet are going, and her eyes are twitching. I'm thinking when she's lying there, she's alive. She's got this aliveness, and this she's experiencing her aliveness. And just watching her tonight, helling around the fields, going absolutely nuts. We're walking along in our own little worlds, and she's literally being hilarious. She's actually smiling and she's running around, and you just think, wow, you know, this energy life force lives within us all, within every single creation. There's this aliveness that's flowing. And yeah, it was really beautiful. And I did want to say something before, actually, when you were talking about presence, and I had no idea what presence was until I walked into my living room that I'd lived in for 7 years and actually saw it for the first time when I sat on the sofa. Kind of went, whoa, the sofa's like HD TV. I can see like all the fibers on it, and shit, is this my living room? And you know, I'd lived in this place for 7 or 8 years and had never really seen it because I don't think I'd ever actually been outside of the flow of my mind before. And I literally didn't do anything but popped into my living room and went, oh God, this is my living room. And then those little times, they're such tiny glimmers, but they're those beautiful reminders of the beyond our conceptual mind, you know, those beautiful things that you don't actually have to do. I can remember phoning you once, Dave. I'd left my customer's house in Hornby and I was on a place called Walnut Tree Road, and I got in my little black Seat Leon that I'd had for, it was 2012 plate. I loved this car, and I got in it and I put my hands on the steering wheel and I was like, shit, this is a steering wheel. What is this magic? And it all of a sudden this stuff kind of had
for moments it had no name. There was like no separation from just the car. But I'd never seen it before. Yeah, I'd driven it a million times.
I seem to remember you saying when you first sat down in your sitting room present, I seem to remember you saying, "It's so dusty."
Did I?
Yeah, you were saying
Okay.
how dusty it was, and you could see all the mess that you couldn't see in the day to day. But all of a sudden, in the moment of presence, you got to see it through different eyes, and you probably got to see it how somebody else might even.
Yeah, it's fresh. It's a freshness.
Just fresh.
It was so long ago, but I'll never forget that first moment of just walking in, just nonchalantly going through your day and then going, "Whoa," it's like popping out and like, whoa, this is pretty amazing. No doing, I think that was what my point was. There was nothing to do for that to occur. It was just a natural gift of noticing or seeing something, seeing the same thing in a different way.
I think we often realise that it is just with new eyes, everything can look different. Like new eyes, fresh thought. You can see something that you think you know and see it for the first time. That's every single moment. That's every single person. Every single person. And I think that's when I first came back from my course in London, when I first came across the principles, it's like I got to see a completely different mum and dad and sister. Like they were just, it was almost, I got to see them fresh. Just, it didn't last actually. Like I got back into my stories about them and stuff, but it definitely changed our relationship because I got to see them just in a much more neutral way. I think sometimes our thinking is so fixed and real, we can't even consider that there could be anything else. And I think glimpses like that, Lise, even if it is about a living room, it's like, wow, where have I been? How can I suddenly see this different? It's like that's every single moment of every single day. There's that opportunity
On every
to see
single
new.
subject.
Yeah.
Dan's just put, Dad can't speak because he's at work. God damn. We're like a good Sky there. I read this today in the Enlightened Gardener Revisited. The very essence of all mental illness is a deluded thought that is relied on as a reality. Beautifully. Go on, Sid. Thank you, Sid.
And I think the nice thing about when Sid spoke about mental illness, he wasn't talking about our system where we label people with mental illness. He saw human beings who suffer. That's mental illness. It wasn't ever a
State of hell.
Yeah.
Cheers, Danny lad. I think thank you, you and Big Mac for raising the levels of testosterone in this group today. It was very estrogen heavy right at the beginning.
We haven't even got
I felt
Rusty here.
totally at home. No, we haven't got Rusty. Have we?
No. It's worrying. I don't know who he is or what he's doing.
He was being good downstairs.
Was he? So he was actually on herbal remedies at the moment, and we were with the vet for about 45 minutes, and she's put together like a blend of herbs, and it's for like mild anxiety and to help with his mind because he's 16 and a half. So she's saying maybe
He's a bit bitey.
But yeah, it's interesting. He's on day 4, I think, of having it.
He hasn't bitten anybody today, has he?
No.
Was it last night he bit my dad?
3 nights ago.
3 nights ago he bit my dad. He's really bad.
Which is
Oh, Paul's just keeping his camera off because he hasn't done his hair or his makeup. Okay, mate, that's fair enough.
One thing that I realised the other day, I went for a walk down on the I've recently moved house and I live near the sea now. And there was a beautiful walk down. I didn't know where I was gonna go on this walk. I just thought I'm gonna see. I got in my car and thought I'm gonna see where I stop. And I stopped on this. It's called the Embankment. Basically, it's a wildlife reserve. It walks all the way along by the sea, and all the birds are, all the seabirds are there and tweeting away, and it's beautiful. And on the way back, I met this really, really, really sweet guy, probably in his 70s. And it was so lovely because I kind of thought, oh, I hadn't seen anybody on this whole walk. And I just listened to this man speaking. And I was like, wow, his essence, my like I was him, and his essence was speaking to me, but it was the same. And it was so nice just to stand there and listen and look at this beautiful man. Go, wow, you know, what is it that brought us together in this actual moment today to have this conversation? And I just sat back and I just listened to this man, and I thought, you learn so much by listening to other people with the openness of thinking, well, this was what comes to me of the wonder of, oh, what's life showing me now? Why is this man crossed my path on this beautiful day? And I just listened to him, and we didn't really necessarily talk about anything spectacular, but the feeling between us was magic, totally beautiful magic. And the more I live, the more I realise that if you're open to listening to other people, whoever they are, whatever walk of life, you can learn something, because it's almost like a message for your soul if you have the ears to hear it. I don't know if that makes any sense, but this is what was just, I thought the other day, you know, what's brought me to this place? And I think it can almost, I don't know, the word broadening horizons comes into my head, and I don't really know what I mean by that, but I suppose the more you listen to the people that cross your path, sometimes without any judgment, your horizons get wider, you learn more about the magic of the magic within the creations of life within other people, and how life works for them. And you realise that we're all lived by this energy, and we all have these different worlds and these different lives, and it's so magical listening to other people's worlds. And you just, yeah, I think there's beauty to be learned from every single creature, person, same thing, that we encounter, situations that we encounter.
It's like when we went up to Cairnholy. People have heard me mention this before, but when we went up to Cairnholy in Galloway, and Cairnholy is it's a very old standing stone thing and a burial chamber. It's really interesting, really unique. I've never seen anything else like it.
It's
And
thought to be. It's thought to be those things.
yeah, and there's a man there. The first time I ever went was years ago, and there was a man there called Joseph. And Joseph was quite an eccentric American fella who came over to Scotland to meet where he came from. His roots came from, I would say. And he stumbled across Cairnholy. There's a sign on the main road saying Cairnholy, so he drove up, and he said he had this experience there. He said, so I set to trying to unravel the mystery of Cairnholy, what it's all about. Is it a measurement? Is it a measurement of the seasons? Does it? So 10 years later, we turn up, Joseph's there. And I'm like, bloody hell, Joseph. I said, I met you 10 years ago. I was with my mum and dad, and at least, no, you weren't there.
No.
Was it?
It was you, wasn't it? So, and we said to Joseph, I said, you were here 10 years ago, mate. He said, I've been every single day to Cairn Holy. And Mum said, okay, well, can you tell me anything about it? How old is it? And Joseph, I remember it was beautiful, he said, well, I know it's at least 10 years old, because 10 years ago, I found it here. So I know it's at least 10 years old, but I have seen a photograph of it during the Second World War. He said, so I think it was there then too. He said, other than that, I don't know. And Mum said, and Joseph said, what do you see, to Mum? And bless him, he'd put pens in the floor, in the ground, and these kids had trampled all over him, and he was measuring the distance of the shadows off the stones cast by the sun. And he said, kid ran along and kicked him out and snapped him, and he went, oh, don't worry, I'll get them measurements next year. Like, assuming it's going to be a sunny day as well. And he said to him, I always remember, it was one of the most beautiful things. Mum said, what else can you tell us? And he said, what do you see? He said, let me tell you what I see. He said, if you look at something long enough, you will learn something. It will teach you something. I remember thinking, this is my kind of scientist. He's not all caught up in it. He knows everything. His mind was wide open. I don't know. What do you see? What I have learned is if I look at something long enough, I learn something. And he said, for example, 2 years ago, so 8 years later, I looked up and I saw, can you see that little mound on top of the hill right over there? We're like, yeah. He said, that's exactly due east of Cairn Holy, 2 miles away. He said, it's a pile of stones, and it's a deliberate pile of stones. He said, so the moment I saw that, he said, and I went and had a look at it. He said, I found this pile of stones that took them bearing exactly due east of Cairn Holy. He said, I looked the other side, and exactly due west is another one 2 miles away. He said, you look at something long enough and you'll start to learn things. I remember thinking that is what such a true statement. I remember thinking, what an insightful man. Our mind is a beautiful tool. It's an amazing gift. We can learn. Nobody teaches us how to learn. School thinks it teaches you how to learn. No, learning is innate. School doesn't teach you intelligence. You are intelligence. We are intelligence.
It's like our friend was telling us earlier about their his son's 2 years and a few months. And he's just saying it's blowing his mind how much he knows and what he learns. And
How old is it?
It's 2 years and a few months.
Oh dear.
He was 2 in October. And he says, like, he'll say, oh, I'm going to work. And he'll say, Daddy uses chainsaws, or because he's a tree surgeon. And he just said it's blowing his mind the amount of things he's saying and things that are coming out of him. And he knows he hasn't actually taught him that. And he knows that he pulls a chipper
On the tow bar.
and he knows about the tow bar. And he just said it's like learning is just so natural to him. He's got no thinking about learning. He's just learning.
It's just intelligence in motion.
Yeah. He said it's blowing his mind watching him.
And that's what this whole universe is. It's going back to what we were talking about earlier. The whole universe is intelligence in motion. It's like I remember it blew my mind when I really looked at chlorophyll in a like I looked at it at school, but just noticing the green on the plants. The only reason why plants have chlorophyll is to take in the light of the sun. Now, the sun's 92 million miles away from the face of planet Earth, but built into each green leaf, whether it be grass or an oak tree or a yew tree or a pine or whatever, a sycamore, a daisy, daffodil, dandelion, plankton, is knowledge of sunlight. Now, the sun's never actually touched the earth's never actually touched the sun, but there is knowledge that spans or intelligence that spans 92 million miles. The only reason why plants have chlorophyll is because of a celestial body out there called the sun, that we call the sun. And it utilizes its power. It's like nature is the most beautifully, intelligently orchestrated, phenomenal thing. And we are that. We are nature. Human beings are nature. There is no separation in it. The separation only exists as a thought.
There's a lady I met called Sophia Wapiti-Ra, who's a breatharian, so she doesn't eat any food. And I met this lady, she's a remarkable lady, and she was talking about how part of her journey in life took her to the Himalayas, and she would journey into the Himalayas by herself with a backpack, and she'd stay in huts along the way. At the time, she just ate one meal a day. She was just this inner guidance woke up beside her, and this was her journey in life. And she settled in this place in the Himalayas, and she got invited to a child's birthday party. I was telling Jen about this last night. And Sophia was there, and she was by herself, and the parents and the women of the children that had gone to this party, they started talking about ages. And Sophia said to them, how old are you ladies? And they said, oh, we don't know. Why do we need to know how old we are? Why do we need to record our life? Because we're just living. There is no need to track this. This child's birthday party was a modern day thing to these people in the Himalayas. And they said, we have no need to record our life on this loop that the modern world record it on, because it's just a continuation of life. There is no such thing as time, there's only life. And for a minute, I popped out of time, big style, into this kind of wowed awareness that comes before the concept of time, before your name, before your birthday, before the creation of the stories that we make of I'm Lisa and I'm 39 years old, before that. And it was just a really beautiful layer of sight, which was just really cool, realizing even all that's made up.
It's mad what you don't question. It's really beautiful. See, that's Sophia
Wapiti-Ra.
She's another example of the possibility of life. People say, oh, breatharians, tricksters. Nah, not real. The individuals that say that don't understand the magnitude of people.
You met this lady, the realizations in life and the things she's been shown and the gifts. She's absolutely incredible. As we all are.
I think that's the beautiful thing. I remember I always used to think perhaps there's something special about me. Perhaps there's something special about Dave, perhaps he's going to do something amazing. Perhaps he's just, is there something special about, I used to, such a fucking enormous ego, bless me.
Bigger than this one.
Bigger than this one. Yeah, it was bigger than this one. It's mad, isn't it? But I remember the day I woke up, it was like, there is something really special about me. Yes, there is. It's friggin' amazing. I am amazing. And I think what blew my mind the most was the most humbling realization. Everybody is that too. Everybody else is that too. And there is nobody who isn't. It's impossible. It's impossible to exist and not be it. This most phenomenal force, power. We can't even comprehend our magnitude. We can't comprehend the magnitude of what we are, what we're capable of. Every single last one of us is the most miraculous event. A gift. Or gifts to one another, gifts to ourselves. Similar to what you were saying about that man, Liz.
We can learn so much from each other because it's life's way of reaching us. It's life's way of living us. I was tripped to this. We were once at a music festival and up at Kendal Calling, must be 15 years ago, and camped next to this hilarious Geordie guy, and he was in like this little bivvy, and I tripped over his. We were sharing a tent peg. His guy rope, my guy rope, and he had one tent peg between us, and because all the tents was like sandwiched together. And I was talking to Jen last night and saying it's funny how somebody in your life can say one thing and you know it's meant for your soul and your life when it goes in, and it could have been anything, but you feel that moment when something's said and you realize that you are the receiver of that message, and it's like, because as I tripped over that tent peg and went completely blind and splattered myself, it's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And he turned around and he just said, only regret the things you don't do in life. That was it. That was all he said. Only regret the things you don't do in life. Throwaway comment. That was meant for my soul. It went so far in, it penetrated every cell in my body. And I just think that's the magic, because you can remember those times when you encounter somebody and they may say something to you and it's just like they put a key in your soul and they open the door and they let the light in and you go, oh yeah. That's kind of what I mean when you can learn things from people. If we are gifted the awareness of falling out of our own minds when we're talking to people, and we can actually hear the message that's being delivered, then there's such a beauty in that. Even if that person is irate, you know, there's still the messages within those interactions that are there for us.
I remember that story when you had like a pretty heavy day and you reversed into someone's car, or you reversed.
Oh no, just had a full body massage for 2 hours.
Oh, that was it. You were totally blissed out and you reversed into someone.
Yeah, and she went fucking nuts. She went absolutely nuts. She was screaming in my face, can I not drive? And I was so blissed out. And literally, to be honest, that was one of those moments of complete presence where I could just see this human being completely, the energy was completely in control of her, and she was completely lost in her creation because she couldn't hear me saying, it's okay, I'll pay for it, it's no problem, I'm really sorry. She couldn't hear me saying that. All she could hear was her own mind, and in her own mind She didn't believe that the vehicle I was in was my business vehicle, even though it was emblazoned with my business. She didn't believe that my business that I just pulled out of was my business. How did she know I was a real person? And she didn't even believe my business card was my business card. But the whole time I was so calm, as she was completely losing her shit with me. And the only thing that I felt was sorry that she was so distressed and genuinely felt like that. And I'm realizing how much I'd changed without trying, because she was literally screaming in my face and all I felt for her was love. I felt so sorry for her and I felt so much love for her. And I didn't really do anything to her car actually either. I cracked the reflector on a bumper. It was the only like literally hairline fracture, but yeah. And that interaction taught me of that thing of we can all be that person as well. We can all be that lady. We can all be that. Yeah, and it was just that I realized how impersonal it was, because it wouldn't have mattered who I was. She'd have probably still reacted the same, but also she couldn't help it, and she was so distressed. And it was only when I drove home that night I was like, wow, that was so different. Because normally I'd have said, do you mean I can't drive? What do you mean I can't drive? I haven't bumped your car, it's no big deal. You know, that would have been the reaction quite a long time ago, but it was just not that. It was just I felt for her, because she was living in that.
Back to that presence again, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just seeing the objective, seeing life objectively without any judgment. Here's a human being suffering right in front of my eyes.
Yeah.
This hasn't got anything to do with me. This is, it might be a catalyst, but this is her creating right now. I didn't know it's not personal to me. It's personal to her.
Another lesson that I got probably is one of the biggest lessons I ever got, and it was selling a roller blind to an old man. I've got a soft furnishing business with my mum and dad, and we design and make soft furnishings and sell blinds and stuff like that. And this old guy came in wanting this roller blind, and I said to him, yeah, that's fine. He was a bit of an asshole, and I was showing him through the books and everything, and he had this arty edge. And to be honest, I wasn't really bothered whether he bought one or not. I was just thinking it'd be really nice if he just went somewhere else. Like, just show it. Anyway, you carry on and show him the books, and that I want that one, and I want it on Tuesday. So we don't get a delivery till next Monday. So I'm really sorry. You're gonna have to wait till next Monday. And he became a bit of an ass, and I was kind of like, well, look, you could go somewhere else and get it, because I can't get it before then. It's as simple as that. And this man had been like venom, and he stood there and he just burst into tears. And he burst into tears and that held the door frame, and his little hand was shaking. He said, I'm so sorry, my wife's just died, and we're having a funeral, and there's a real mess outside that window, and I want to have that blind there to cover it up. And I just gave this man a cuddle, and I was like, I'm so sorry, I can't get it for you by then. I'm really sorry. And he's like, well, it's okay, I'll order it anyway. I'm sorry I spoke to you like that. And you can take people's behavior personally, which kind of at the time I was like, oh my God, you know, go away. But that moment, the lesson I learned from that is you never ever know what is going on in somebody else's world, why they behave the way they behave. You just never know. Never know. And that, had that man left, I'd have thought he was the biggest arsehole on the planet. Turns out he was a very hurt human being that was really scared and didn't know what to do. And I'm glad I got that lesson, because it taught me something massive. As that ego in him settled down and the honesty came through, you could see in that man's eyes that he didn't mean all those edges. He was there. And that there-ness is always behind all the edges and the chaos that we can all live in.
it's funny, isn't it? Because those edges are what we think protect us.
Mm.
You know, when that man displayed those edges to you, it was him trying to protect himself.
Yeah.
It was his defense. It was him trying to keep himself safe and keep himself comfortable, and as comfortable as he could be. I need to have this right, then I feel okay. It's Tuesday night, it must be Tuesday. And you know, this is one of the greatest deceptions our mind creates, are these edges that we display to people. And we think, I remember I was working with a friend, and she said, we're just talking, and she said, of course I've got a suit of armor. I have to protect myself. I said, what are you protecting yourself from? She said, well, the world. I said, is the world out to get you? Yes. Is it? Is it out to get you, the world? I said, do you not think that if you walk around in a suit of, I said, a suit of armor is great if you go into war against swords and shit, and we don't really do that anymore. But after a little while, they get a little bit stuffy, the suits of armor that we put on to protect ourselves. They get a bit stuffy, become heavy and clunky, and life becomes very difficult to operate with this suit of armor. And it's similar to a young girl that we worked with who'd been raped by her own brother and in and out of prison. We kept her out of prison on the 36th offence, and she had a fucking hell of a life. But this girl, I remember having a conversation with her, and I was very upfront with her and straight with her. And I just pointed out she was fighting a world that isn't fighting back. You're at war with the world, but the world's not at war with you. Every interaction that she had, she was aggressive. She was, oh, he's an arsehole, he's an effing C, and blah, 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 blah. The probation person, God bless her, she was lovely. She's an effing arsehole. And it was like, do you see what you're doing here? This lady's trying to help you, but you're being a complete and utter arsehole to her. I remember saying to her, I said, you're fighting a war against a world that isn't fighting back. You're a one-woman war. Her edges were just all of her beliefs. She was trying her best to defend herself, to keep herself safe. She wanted to feel safe, and her only way to feel safe was to attack, and she attacked everybody. God bless her. I love her to bits. I love her to bits. But I remember I was very straight with her, and I said, look, you're fighting a war against a world that isn't fighting back. You are the war. You are your own problem. You are the reason why your life's utter chaos. And she told me, after 20 minutes of me being quite straight with her, and Jenny said to her, she said, we understand why you did create the character that you display to the world, because at one point you did need to protect yourself. You were having horrific things happen to you at a very young age. But it's no longer happening. And you no longer need to defend yourself. There's nobody out to get you now. But you're living as though there is. And she sent a message to Jenny in the morning. And she said, I thought last night that Dave was, this was her words.
Don't say.
I thought Dave last night was a proper see you next Tuesday. Okay. But I've woken up and I feel totally different. She said, I can't disagree with anything he said. And it's amazing. We do walk around with our defense mechanisms up, with our suits of armor, with our edges, thinking that our edges are the things that are keeping us safe, when in actual fact, it's our edges that are creating our suffering. It's our edges that are creating our misery. It's our edges that are creating all the problems in our lives. It's our defenses. It's our things that we need to protect us. And I remember asking this girl, what are you protecting yourself from? You've got all this defensiveness. What are you protecting yourself from? She said, I don't know. She's protecting herself because she believed at one point there was something to protect herself from, which there was. But she never let go of that belief. and she carried it. She never questioned it. And I know many people like that. I can be like that sometimes. We all have these edges that we think keep us safe. Boundaries and stop us from fully engaging with people and life on a completely personal level, like Leaf's meeting an old man walking around the bird sanctuary. It's only our edges that prevent that from happening, as really connecting with ourselves, other people and life. And these edges are thoughts.
I remember actually after being around the principles for about 2 or 3 years, going to, it must have only been maybe been around a couple of years, and I was going down to do a wedding photography down at Lulworth Cove, I think it's in Devon, and I was walking along the beach, and there's an old guy and his wife walking towards me, and I caught his eye, and normally I'd avoid people's eye, like out of shyness, and
But he was really hot.
no, he looked at me and he smiled, and then he went, "Isn't it a joy to be alive?" And I went, "Yeah, it really is," and just lit up, and then tripped over and burst out laughing. And I remember thinking, God, I've missed so many moments like that because I'm so avoiding eye contact, avoiding looking at people, worried are they actually talking to me, and like all of those things, all of those kind of, I think, more subtle ego traits. But I remember just thinking that was such a brilliant moment, and I've never forgotten it. And that was like in, well, 14 years ago, 14, 15 years ago, and I haven't forgotten it. I've no idea where he is now or anything, but it is like those interactions. Another one was when we went to Nepal. I used to always try and sit not next to the person I didn't know. Like I'd make whoever I was with sit next to the person that I didn't know. I was thinking, how uncomfortable is it sitting next to someone you don't know for 12 hours or whatever? And I thought, no, I'm going to sit in the middle. And I thought, I'm going to start a conversation. And I just said hello to the guy next to me, and ended up being, he's a psychologist who worked in prisons out in America. And he was going out to help after the earthquakes as well. And he ended up coming to a couple of our seminars and things. And there's another one of those moments I was like, wow, I've missed so many interactions and connections through my edge of not wanting to be a nuisance, not wanting to get in the way, not knowing how to communicate.
We all know how to communicate.
Not feeling like I knew how to communicate.
But we all do. And it's so easy when we just recognize our own bullshit. It's like when we did that work with that lady down in Southend-on-Sea. She said, I can't believe you'd spend all this time with a total stranger. And I said to her, I haven't met a total stranger in 6 years. Stop meeting strangers, and I just started meeting people. I hate that word stranger. It's such a horrible word. Such a horrible word. No such thing as strangers. There's just people we haven't become acquainted to yet. Yeah.
Has anyone got questions or anything? Because people who are new, normally at the end of group, if we remember, we have just 5 minutes quiet where we either like visualize the world we want to live in, send out love to the world or to an individual, and we just sit quietly for 5 minutes. But if anyone wants to say anything before that, if people need to shoot off, I know we've run over a little bit, you're welcome, you don't have to stay.
Yeah, we do. Going back to Angie's question, I think it was Angie, yeah, about the manifesting. Yeah, absolutely. We totally can. And if we all come together and we all look in the direction of a more beautiful world, we create it. It's as simple as that. So this is why we take 5 minutes out and we just ask for love for people all around the world, even the people that we don't like, or particularly maybe we've got a bit of beef with them. Just putting love out. So like Jen says, anybody who does want to leave, please feel free, but those that want to stay, this is just a chance for us all to come together and help make behind the scenes reality become a reality.
What are you doing, Dave? My
Whoa.
internet fell out.
All right, let's do 5 minutes of
Cool.
yeah.